It's not an understatement to say money and personal finance can be quite complex. Whether we're talking about investing in index funds, buying a house, or even just creating a budget, it's easy to get caught in the awkward place of analysis paralysis. But what has helped me a lot in these situations like this is what many people call money ratios or simple rules of thumb. Therefore, in today's video, we'll review 12 of my favorite money ratios, so you can use them as a guide to help you break through that dreaded analysis paralysis. Hi, if you're new to the channel, my name is Tay from Financial Tortoise, where we learn to grow our wealth slow and steady. The first money ratio we want to have in our toolbox is 6 months, or more specifically, 6 months of expenses as an emergency fund. No one likes emergencies. They make us feel uncomfortable and off our game. But do you know what's worse? Not having money to cover emergencies. Whether we like it or not, unplanned and unexpected events are a matter of when, not if. Emergency events will happen no matter how much we plan. We could lose our job tomorrow. Our car might suddenly stop in the middle of the road. Or worse yet, we could have a health scare. So we want to get in the habit of always having a level of emergency fund in our checking or savings account. 6 months is a good starting place. Without it, our grandiose plan to save for the future or invest will always get derailed. Will we drive a car without wearing a seatbelt? Or squat without a safety bar? Don't be that guy or gal that thinks nothing bad will happen to us. Without it, we'll be required to fund the money from the other areas of our budget. Or worse yet, get into credit card debt. Again, 6 months is a good starting place, but you can dial this number up or down based on your specific situation. My wife and I are pretty conservative, so we like 12 months. But if you're in a very stable work situation, 3 months could work too. The key is to have one and use the 6-month rule of thumb as a starting place. The second money ratio we want to have in our toolbox is the 50-30-20 ratio, a ratio to help us frame our budget. In all honesty, a good budget is actually dependent on a lot of variables. Where you live, how much you earn, and your life stage. However, if you've never created a budget before and don't know where to start, this rule of thumb is actually a great place to start. Senator Elizabeth Warren and her daughter actually popularized this 50-30-20 budgeting method in their book, All Your Worth. It breaks down as the following. 50% of spending goes towards basic expenses and necessities. Think housing and bills. 30% spending towards dining and entertainment. Think eating out and your Disney Plus subscription. Then 20% goes towards saving for retirement and paying down debt. Think 401k and any outstanding student loans. Use this as a starting point if you've never done a budget before. This is a very simple but a balanced way to allocate your money. And generally, the 20% towards retirement should work for most Americans if they can follow it. I've read statistics that the average American saves less than 5% of their income. Unfortunately, that will put many people nowhere near their target when they're ready to retire. If you can maintain a 20% savings rate towards retirement throughout your working career, you should be set up nicely for retirement. But if you can save more, the better. If you can allocate more than 20% of your budget to investing, no need to limit yourself. And if you're wanting to retire earlier, saving more than 20% is likely a necessity. In the financial independence world, the golden savings rate target is usually 50%. Now, if you're nowhere this number, don't worry. Use the 50-30-20 rule to establish your budgeting habit and slowly work your way up from there. The number 3 money ratio is the 0.1% rule, or more specifically, no greater than 0.1% expense ratios. When looking at mutual funds or index funds, one of the first numbers you want to look at is the expense ratio. This is a fee that is being charged for you to invest in that fund. This perhaps is the most significant drag on most people's investment returns. The direct impact and the cost of the financial services industry. It's not uncommon to see people paying 2 to 3% of their assets to advisory and fund management fees. 2 to 3% may not sound like much on surface, but when we put into dollar amounts, in a $10,000 portfolio, we're talking about $200 to $300 going into someone else's pocket instead of yours. And when we compound this over the years, we could be talking about thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars. When we can reduce these fees, it translates to a direct boost to investment returns. Now, what is the most straightforward way to cut fees? The most obvious way is to reduce the expense ratio, a fee charged by the investment firm or the fund manager. Let's say you have a sizable investment portfolio, around $1 million, and you've been paying 2% expense ratio, $20,000 annually because it's being managed by a fund manager. Again, in my book, unjustifiable amount, given that most actively managed funds fail to beat the market. So you fire your fund manager and learn to be your own financial advisor. And you start to invest your money in low-cost, broad market index funds. My favorite is the Vanguard Total Stock Market Index Fund, VTSAX, and has an expense ratio of 0.04%. This translates to $400 in expenses annually. Versus the $20,000 you were paying earlier, you're automatically saving $19,600 a year. Money that is staying with your investment, compounding and growing your net worth, instead of funding your investment manager's yacht. Most good funds like VTSAX already has fees that are lower than 0.1%, so that is good news. But if you notice that your fund's expense ratio is greater than 0.1%, really assess what you're getting for that extra expense. The number 4 money ratio we want to have in our toolbox is 10 times. 10 times our income for life insurance. And for life insurance, we want to make sure we're getting term life insurance. not permanent or whole life. Term life insurance is insurance that is issued for a specific number of years, the term. For example, if you get a 20-year policy, you would pay a monthly premium for 20 years, and the payout, the death benefit, is guaranteed to your beneficiary if you die any time during that 20-year window. If you're still alive at the end of the 20-year period, the policy just expires. You no longer pay the premium, and you're no longer covered by the life insurance. It's quite simple. Probably one of the simplest financial products you can purchase, which also makes it one of the best ones to purchase because everyone understands exactly what you're buying. Permanent insurance, or whole life insurance on the other hand, is, as its name suggests, is a policy that never expires. You pay a monthly premium until your death, at which time your beneficiary will receive a full amount promised in the policy. In addition to the full policy amount at death, a portion of the premium you pay into it also accumulates a cash value. I feel there are a lot of reasons why you shouldn't get this permanent life insurance, and if you want to learn more, please check out my video here. But for me, the biggest reason at the end of the day, insurance shouldn't be used as an investment vehicle. Insurances are a risk management tool to protect us from catastrophic events, not wealth building tools. They help us to protect our wealth. And insurance companies are in the business of insurance, not investments. The best way to grow your money with investments is with actual investment products like low-cost index funds, not with insurance companies. My recommendation would be to get a simple 20-year term life insurance, 10 times our income. The number 5 money ratio we want to have in our toolbox is the 4% rule. Probably one of the most talked about rules of thumb in the personal finance and the financial independence world. This originates from the Trinity University, where 3 professors who were curious to know the ideal withdrawal rate in an investment portfolio decided to run a whole bunch of scenarios to find out. Over a 30-year period, they applied different withdrawal percentages ranging from 3% to 12% to various portfolios, each with different mix of stocks and bonds. And the finding turned out that in a 50-50 stock-to-bond portfolio, adjusted for inflation, the 4% withdrawal rate allowed the portfolio to remain intact 96% of the time. This means that if you had a $1 million portfolio invested in a 50-50 stock-to-bond ratio, and if you withdraw 4% from it every year for 30 years straight, there was a 96% chance that your portfolio will remain intact at the end of 30 years. There are some nuances you want to consider, such as the sequence of return risk and your ideal stock-to-bond ratio, but it is a good rule of thumb to help you assess how much you can withdraw from your portfolio in retirement. The number 6 money ratio we want to have in our toolbox is a 25 times rule. This is really just a reframing of the 4% rule. This rule estimates how much you'll need in order to retire or consider yourself financially independent. It's using the 4% rule to see if you have enough. If you multiply your annual expenses by 25, then that is what you need. If you have that amount, drawing out 4% a year will cover your expenses. Some choose to be more conservative and push for 30 times expenses. Others are more aggressive and have 20 times. It's a quick rule of thumb to see how far you're away from financial independence. Do you have about 10 times of your expenses saved in investment? Great, based on this ratio, you're about 1/3 to 1/2 the way there. However, note that both this rule and the previous one don't really account for other sources of income like business income, rental income, or Social Security. The number 7 money ratio we want to have in our toolbox is 120 minus my age. A quick formula to assess our stock-to-bond portfolio allocation. One of the most common questions I get is this: how much of our portfolio should be in stocks versus in bonds? The general rule of thumb is that as we age, bonds should make up a larger part of our portfolio to smooth out risk as we approach retirement age. Bonds historically have lower returns, but less volatility in comparison to stocks. So they help to smooth out our portfolio when it comes time to withdraw. A starting formula to see what my allocation could be is this: 120 minus my age is a percentage you should invest in stocks. The rest is in bonds. For example, if I'm 40 years old, 120 minus 40 is 80. So 80% in stocks and the remaining 20 in bonds. At age 50, 120 minus 50 is 70. So 70% in stocks and the remaining 30% in bonds. But this should just be a starting place, and your actual allocation should incorporate many factors such as your current and future income, risk tolerance, and other assets such as real estate. The number 8 money ratio we want to have in our toolbox is a rule of 72. The rule of 72 enables us to estimate how long it will take to double our money given a certain interest rate. The higher the interest rate, the faster we can double an initial investment. Lower the interest rate and doubling our money takes a little longer. Here's how it works. We divide our expected rate of return on our investment into 72. The result is an estimate of how many years it will take us to double our initial investment. For example, if we earn 8% annual interest on an investment, it will take us about 9 years to double our money. 72 divided by 8 equals 9. If we earn a 10% interest rate on our investment, the time to double our money shrinks to about 7 years. 72 divided by 10 equals 7.2. This simple rule of thumb allows us to easily calculate the impact of a rate of return or an interest rate on our money. The number 9 money ratio we want to have in our toolbox is our age times income divided by 10. This formula was popularized out of the book The Millionaire Next Door by Dr. Thomas Stanley and gives us the expected net worth based on our age. You multiply your current age with your pre-tax annual income and then divide it by 10. If your net worth is larger than you expected, then you could be considered wealthy. If less, then you might be a bit behind the curveball. Let's take a look at an example. Let's say that you're a 40-year-old mid-corporate director making $200,000 a year. Your net worth should be $800,000 at this time. 40 times 200,000 divided by 10. And don't be discouraged if you're not at this number. This is a rule of thumb, and just because you haven't hit this number doesn't mean you can't be wealthy one day. Income changes and our lifestyle expenses can change as well. The number 10 money ratio we want to have in our toolbox is the 1% rule. This rule states that your investment property should rent for 1% of the purchase price. For example, if you purchase a 3-bedroom single-family house for $200,000, it should rent for at least $2,000 a month. 1% of $200,000 is $2,000. Of course, you want to run all the numbers, but this 1% rule will likely help ensure that you're in a cash flow positive or at least cash flow neutral situation. A high percentage could be better, but in many parts of the country, that probably isn't feasible. And also, if the percentage is too high, there's likely a good reason for that. The home could be in a not so nice part of town in which you might not want to be the landlord. The number 11 money ratio we want to have in our toolbox is a 20% rule. And this time we aren't talking about savings rate, but rather a down payment for a home. When planning to buy a home, we want to put at least 20% down. The 20% down seems like a big lift, but there's a good reason why this number works, especially when it comes to buying something expensive like a home. One, this ensures that we don't buy more home than we can afford. Second, it lowers our monthly mortgage costs because we have more equity in the home to begin with. And third, my personal favorite, you don't have to pay for the dreaded private mortgage insurance, aka PMI. Anyone who puts down less than 20% of home value typically has to pay for private mortgage insurance in addition to homeowner insurance. This could cost you anywhere from 0.5% to 1% of your loan value annually. So if you have a $400,000 mortgage, you're looking at an additional $2,000 to $4,000 per year for PMI. I know 20% could be a stretch, and for many, this could mean delaying home purchase for several more years. But try to keep this 20% down as a target when looking to buy a home. The number 12 money ratio we want to have in our toolbox stays in line with home buying, and that is 3 times our gross income. We want to keep the price of our future home to no more than 3 times our gross income. Of course, like any other ratios and rules of thumb, people have opinions about this number. Some say 4 times because of the high cost of living. Others say 2.5 times because they want to be conservative. I like 3 times because somewhere in the middle. And no hard science to back this up, but at the end of the day, you don't want to overstretch yourself when buying a home. You don't want to put yourself in a house poor situation. Also note, lenders have their own set of qualifications, but it helps to start with your estimate when you're looking around. Just because a lender tells you that you can afford to take out a certain size mortgage, it doesn't necessarily mean you should go to the maximum. If you're in a very high cost of living area like California or New York, this ratio might be too low, but it's still a good place to start. Thank you guys for watching. In the line of buying a home, if you like additional resources to help you decide if you should buy or not buy a home, please check out my video here. Until next time, all the best.